Peg is one of 6 kids that were raised on a farm in Northeast Iowa. She is a physician's assistant. With a continuing focus on healthcare, she worked and volunteers with migrant farm workers. She has also volunteered for over 30 years at the Free Medical Clinic in Iowa City and in Cedar Rapids. In addition, she served that migrant community by teaching English for several years through Iowa City Compassion. She's very active on the UU sponsorship team for our church. We are currently sponsoring a Cuban couple. Peg reads with kids at Lucas Elementary. In addition, she works with Grow Johnson County. This group is sponsoring field trips for 6th graders in the Iowa City School District. On these field trips, the kids see how food is grown and visit acres of prairie to see pollinators at work. Peg served as co-chair of the Racial Justice Committee at UUS and taught an anti-racism class. She was instrumental in bringing Caleb Rainey to UUS for a performance, as well as Jonathan Buffalo, a member of the Meskwaki tribe. She visits a prisoner at Oakdale every 6 weeks. You have seen her this morning in action as part of leadership development. In collaboration with Luther College, she and her family are working with the Iowa Soybean Association to gather farmers in June to see conservation practices on that family farm. I think you'll agree that Peg is a UU to be proud of. She has and is benefiting this congregation, the Iowa City area, and all of Eastern Iowa. Would you come forward, Peg? Thank you. You certainly can. Let me get out of your way.
Thank you. It's really humbling, and I almost turned it down because it was embarrassing, but she convinced me. And it's really an honor to receive this from people I really respect, and many of you could be up here too, so that means a lot to me. I feel like I have the privilege with my time and health and skin color to be able to put myself in a lot of different situations to help, which is a benefit to me in a lot of ways. I get to stay proximate to issues that are that I haven't experienced myself, and feel like I can understand the complexity of issues better, like poverty, for example. Gives me perspective, and I'm really grateful, especially in the last few months, to have built into my schedule a way to be useful and not feel helpless, and to be able to support programs that have been doged, if that's a verb now. So I benefit a great deal. And this is kind of icing on the cake. So thank you.
Good morning. I am Deb Schollerman. Augusta Chapin was an educator and an activist for women's rights. She became a Universalist minister in 1864, one of the first women to be ordained in the country. She served the Iowa City Universalist Church from 1869 to 1873. She was very capable and well-liked, and she led the Iowa City congregation to its highest point since its founding in 1841. The Augusta Chapin Meritorious Service Award was suggested by the staff and created by the board in 2018 to recognize the contributions of what I'm calling super volunteers. Quote, "This award recognizes, celebrates, and thanks individuals who have shown sustained high levels of engagement and service in the daily life of UUS over extended periods of time." This year, we are awarding 2. Pete Brokaw has been a member of UUS since 2009. During that time, he has contributed much to our congregation. He sent me a list of his activities since then, and I looked through the list, and 4 words came to mind: membership, ministers, money, and munchies. Membership. In his early years, Pete served on the membership associates with Jean Reese and was co-leader of Kayak. Remember that? The college and young adult community with Lois Cole. He now participates in a hospitality team and a covenant group. Ministers. Pete has been active in supporting our ministers. He was a member of the ministerial search committee that nominated the Reverend Stephen Protzman. He was a member of the interim minister support team for the Reverend Diane Daugert, and as you heard, just finished serving of the ministerial interim support team for Bridget Laughlin. Pete's a money guy. In the years of his involvement, Pete has served on the Board of Trustees, the Endowment Committee, and the Stewardship Committee. He was part of the team who looked for a new insurance company for our church, and he currently serves on the Finance Committee. Munchies. Pete knows the importance of food. He has helped with dinner preparations for Welcome Home Wednesdays. He provides home meals to those who need them, and when there's a potluck, he's always bringing something really good. He helps with the free lunch program, and he's lead of the Little Free Pantry team. In addition, his miscellaneous jobs include helping as an office volunteer, being active in social justice teams, helping sew cloth book bags we used to make for school children, and Pete always shows up on the grounds outdoor work days. One October, he even somewhat reluctantly climbed up on the roof with Gary Lawrenson to help clean out the roof drains. It's not the going up the ladder or being on the roof that bothered him. It's coming back down the ladder. Now that's true commitment. We are pleased to present Pete with the Augusta Chapin Meritorious Service Award.
Thanks, everybody. I've said before, it takes a village, and I could not imagine a better set of villagers to work with. You guys inspire me from the very beginning. We don't use clipboards anymore to try and find people to be ushers and all that, but I appreciate what Jeff said earlier, that there, the level of enthusiasm has been very apparent. I do want to say, I met my first UU congregants before I ever knew what Unitarian Universalism was, and that was Dave and Diane Martin. I used to live in their neighborhood, and I walked my dog past their place, and they'd be out with their dog, and we just started talking. But before that, Wendy Brown had a project where we planted daffodil bulbs on the Pentecrest, and that was my first. I had no idea that we would be friends this long, and I look out and I see so many other friends of people that I've worked with and have helped me. So thank you again. I appreciate that.
Our second recipient of the Augusta Chapin Meritorious Service Award is Dave Martin. Dave Martin is an old friend of mine. He's been a member here at UUS for over 50 years. He's taught RE. He's taught the OWL classes. He was the co-director of RE before it was a paid position. He's had 4 board positions: president, treasurer, finance, and at large. Served on 2 ministerial search committees, served on stewardship, racial justice, social justice, and endowment. He was a strong member of the Capitol campaign that gave us our brand new building. Before we were the Mid-America region, he served as the Prairie Star Board as vice president. After we became Mid-America, he was elected to the first board for 3 years. Dave attended the Midwest Leadership School in Beloit, Wisconsin, and subsequently served on staff there for 3 years. He has also served as a UUS delegate to several UUA General Assemblies, as well as the Mid-America regional meetings. I know you agree with me that nobody deserves this award more than Dave Martin.
I think it's just me and the cake, between the cake here, so I'll make this quick. I was thinking what to say this morning. One of the things that came up for me, Jim mentioned, this has been 10 or 12 years ago when we first formed the Mid-America region. We had 3 districts in the Midwest that formed a region. And I was on the first board and was involved in setting up the bylaws of that region. But one of the things we struggled with, there were 6 states within that region, and we were struggling, where do we incorporate? And there was a lot of discussion about advantages and disadvantages. And we ended up incorporating in Iowa. I was the only member of Iowa on the board, but we ended up incorporating in Iowa because we were the only state at that time in which same-sex marriage was legal. So I want you all to remember that as we go forward. Thank you.
Okay, so next, a brief sabbatical report from Sarah Ross. And Reverend Diana wasn't here when we developed the congregational meeting agenda, so I wasn't exactly sure where to put her on the agenda. So she's also listed under sabbatical reports.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Ross. I'm a relatively short, recently turned 61-year-old white woman. I have short graying brown hair. In my role as vice president of the UUS Board of Trustees, I served as the convener of the sabbatical committee during Reverend Diana's sabbatical, which began on January 27, 2024 and ended on April 26, 2025. This is a brief report on the work of the sabbatical committee prior to and during the sabbatical. In addition to myself, the other members of the sabbatical committee included Carmen Griggs, who served in her role as a member of the UUS Personnel Committee, Cara Beauchamp, who served in her role on the Worship Associates team, Lois Cole, who served in her role as the UUS Community Minister, Virginia Melroy, who served in her role on the Pastoral Care team, Bridget Laughlin, who served in her role as Ministerial Intern, and Reverend Diana. The sabbatical committee began meeting in September of 2024 to plan coverage for and do anticipatory problem solving to support smooth congregational operations in 3 main areas: worship planning, pastoral care, and staff supervision. The committee continued to meet monthly throughout the sabbatical with the exception of March. We are glad to have Reverend Diana back, and we are pleased to report that the extensive planning initiated by Reverend Diana and supported by the sabbatical committee prior to her absence proved to be quite effective, which is to say there were no significant issues or glitches in any of the 3 operational areas on which the committee focused its planning.
We want to highlight and appreciate the leadership and contribution of our ministerial intern, Bridget Laughlin, in supporting the congregation during the sabbatical, as well as the culture of collaborative teamwork we witnessed at senior staff and all staff meetings. It was clear that the staff under Reverend Diana's leadership have worked to intentionally create a positive and supportive work environment. These supportive collegial relationships among the staff played a big role in keeping things running smoothly and in alignment with UUS's mission and values. We offer kudos to our staff for bringing their best selves to their work.
I want to start by offering my gratitude to the sabbatical committee, to the staff, the board, and the congregation for all the work that you all did that supported this congregation, supported each other in this time that allowed me to go away on my sabbatical, which was dearly needed. I am so impressed by how well this congregation functioned during that time, and that is due to you all. I'm impressed with the ways that you found to support each other and to begin discerning each of your and our collective work in our current political climate. Thank you. Together during my sabbatical, as well as during the rest of this year, we have worked to live out our 24 to 25 vision of shared ministry. I'm not going to go through this in exhaustive detail, but the 3 big bullet points of our vision of shared ministry this year have been nourishing resilience as a community, strengthening and developing our shared ministry, and practicing welcoming hospitality and community care. And the reports we've been hearing and the words that Sarah shared and in the words that you're going to hear after mine, I hope that you will notice how those 3 themes have been lived out this year. I'm just going to take a few moments to highlight a few things that have happened this winter and spring, especially during my sabbatical. First, in terms of preaching, our ministerial intern preached twice a month during my sabbatical. We had 2 guest ministers, both our affiliated community minister and a neighboring UU minister. Our director of lifespan religious education preached, and we had 4 members of our congregation share their sermons. Our pastoral care and memorial services were organized through our pastoral care team, which included our intern. Personnel supervision happened through the personnel committee, the board, vice president, and with management support from Bridget. And the staff continued their work developing high-functioning team habits, supported by the book of that name. In religious education, we have finished a very successful year of Sunday RE and Youth RE and OWL, as well as great adult religious education offerings. All the mind, heart, and spirit groups, covenant groups, and affinity groups have continued to do excellent work, supporting each other in your spiritual and life journeys. We've continued to do vibrant justice work, including days of service, that's making a tremendous difference in this community and growing our connections in the wider community. We've had a very successful mortgage campaign, which we'll hear about shortly, and we have amazing lay leadership. So thank you again for all that you do and have done and will do to help make UUS a beacon and a sanctuary for those seeking meaningful connections or a refuge from social and political oppression.
Okay, next is an update on our continuing work with the Hope for Us conflict engagement team, which is a outside group through the UUA. Erica Reshley, incoming board member, is going to give a brief presentation on our work with them.
Hello, My name is Erica Rushley. I am a middle-aged white woman with salt and pepper hair. People tell me it's mostly salt. Now, glasses and kind of a flowy outfit for burnt orange top. And I use she, her pronouns. So let me give you a brief history. In 2024, the UUS board and the minister initiated contact with Hope for Us, the Hope for Us team. Both the UUS board and the ministry recognized a need to create a culture around conflict, a culture that's more resilient and sustainable and doesn't necessarily follow the way our culture deals with conflict. The purpose of this work is to work with UUS and to help specifically build our congregational capacity to engage in conflict in ways that are constructive, transparent, and scaffolding, and helping us engage in conflict based on our UUS values and in our relationship with one another. This work is going to mean developing specific skills, using processes that will help us, support us in having challenging conversations in our day-to-day operations, our ministry work, and governance. The next steps, we're very early in the process. The Right Relations Committee is meeting in early June, and the Right Relations Committee will be discussing our role, and I'm on the Right Relations Committee, along with Christine Etler, Jim Olson, and Kristen Wildensee. We'll be meeting in early June to discuss our role in working with the board and the Hope for Us team. And as this process continues to unfold, you'll hear about next steps and opportunities to support and engage in this work in weekly emails and possibly occasional updates from the pulpit. In terms of cost overview, the cost for the first phase of this work is $10,000. And we applied for and received a grant from UUA, and that covers half of it. The UUS Finance Committee and the board approved the expenditure for the $5,000 from our end, and that's been included in the 2025 budget. Any additional costs will be discussed and approved by the board and finance committee prior to being incurred. If you have questions, suggestions, or concerns about this congregational undertaking, please talk with Sarah Ross or myself, again, Erica Rushley. All right, thank you.
One thing I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge is that both Erica and Jan, who are planning to join the board, have been super engaged already, like attending some of our meetings. And regarding Hope for Us specifically, the process up to the last couple months had largely been Reverend Diana and I working with folks from Hope for Us and you know, trying to build that relationship and figure out how to move forward. So Reverend Diana was gone on sabbatical, and I was overwhelmed and looking for someone to hand this off to. And Erica gratefully, you know, not even on the board yet, agreed to assume leadership and with Sarah's assistance have really helped move things forward. I'm super grateful for both of them. Okay, so now a series of financial related reports, starting with our treasurer, Michael Honey-Arseman.
Hello, I'm Michael Honey-Arseman, the incredibly obviously elder millennial in a Scrooge McDuck t-shirt from DuckTales. Financially, UUS started 2025 strong. Income from various sources in the first 3 months of 2025 have matched our historical trends, and I'm happy to report that as of April 1st, we're on financial targets. In that first quarter, we brought in about $249,000 and we only spent 181,000. Doing quick math, we have a surplus of $68,000 coming into quarter two. What makes my job, what makes all of my predecessors' jobs difficult is the lumpiness of our income and our expenses. Every year, we'll have people who make pledges in Realm and then think their money is coming out, and then we'll get a letter saying, you haven't paid us a penny. It's happened to me. I'm not even going to ask to raise your hands if it's happened to you. I would have would have people out there raising their hands. So just take this opportunity, go home, double check your realm, make sure that the promises that you have made are being fulfilled. And if there's an error in realm, there are people around who can help get that fixed. And so I'm looking at the reports and I'm looking out at this next 6 months, and I'm just going to be frank and express concerns about our stewardship campaign, our current pledging goals, the promises of this congregation. We've had an amazing start to this year. Not going to downplay that. But we've promised, this congregation has promised $370,000, and I budgeted $400,000. So that's a $30,000 gap between the budget that we passed in December and what has currently been promised. Now, every year we'll get people just going in, hearing me, hearing Mike, and just, oh, right, yeah, cut a check that they didn't promise to cut, and I'm so grateful for that. But it makes planning very hard when I don't know who's just going to walk in the door, drop a $10,000 check and say thank you, and walk away. So it's not too late to pledge for 2025 and let me know money's coming. So I'm going to be definitely looking at our accounts, looking at money coming in, money going out. And the summer is usually when we see things fall. And then we'll have a massive, strong campaign out in November, December, and it'll be like the summer never happened. And hopefully this will happen again in 2025. Now, on our other campaigns, we've done amazingly well. You are about to hear from Jeff about our mortgage campaign. I'm looking at our endowment funds, and I don't think we have anybody from endowment on the slides on the schedule, but I will go out and say our endowment's doing very well. And so financially, we're doing very well. But just if I could get some more promises, that would be great. And one of those goals I want, and when I'm going in 2026, and I'm getting ready for our 2026 budget, and I'll be working. I am so grateful to have Kara Beauchamp coming up, developing that future leader, helping me. Is every year we've had various major expenses. We've had the failure of the solar panels before. Very recently, we've seen failure of glass. And so I'm looking in my 2026 budgeting process to create a dedicated reserve fund specifically to self-fund money up to our insurance deductible of, we have a 10,000, 20,000, whatever it'll be in this new policy, being able to have up to that deductible set aside, like, yeah, no, we can just do it. For the glass, we've got an amazing cash reserves. We're pulling that out. Not concerned for this, but want to think out into the future. As we've worked for many years over many treasurers to have over 3 months of budgeted expenses in our cash reserves. That allows us to handle these unplanned events. And what that means is we could have 0 income, no ASA, no pledges, nothing, and keep paying paychecks for 3 months. I would think that's good, that's healthy, and we want to keep that level of going. As your treasurer, I'm open. You can email me, very simply, easy to remember, treasurer@uusic.org. Or I have office hours every Sunday morning before service. Come right in, say hi, and we can get into the weeds. I can answer some details. And now here's Jeff.
Okay, so this is the fun part of the meeting, at least for me. Before I announce the mortgage reduction campaign results, I want to make a couple of quick thank yous to folks who may not be expecting it. First, a thank you to Liz Swanson, who urged us to conduct this campaign in the spring rather than the fall, which is what I had been kind of anticipating. And it really turned out to be a great decision, which leads to a second set of thank yous. At our December congregational meeting, Jim Olson and Jan Weaver both raised questions and concerns about our mortgage and our finances more generally. After the meeting, because they stood up, I invited them both to help figure things out. And they both quickly agreed to work with us, and they helped form a group that completed a feasibility study and developed a campaign outline really quickly. And I'm very grateful to them and to the folks that helped them, Monique DiCarlo, Dave Martin, and John Rayleigh. The information and guidance provided by this group was critical to the success of the campaign, and I'm grateful for the willingness of all of them to step up. So thank you so much. Okay, so next slide. So based on really the work that the feasibility committee did, we decided to be more ambitious than we had originally thought and aim for $350,000. And we currently, next slide, stand at $395,000. So it's an amazing result, and it will give us so much more freedom and flexibility as we work through some of these challenges that Michael's describing. And I want to emphasize that while the formal campaign is over, there's still plenty of time to make a donation by September 30th. Okay, and I forgot there's one more slide I wanted to show you. Let's see, I've got a printout of my own I can reference here somewhere. Basically what this is showing, the whole pie is essentially representing the size of the mortgage, which in November will be about $675,000. So the big green shaded area is the amount that we've raised so far from the congregation. That'll cover 60% or so of the mortgage. We also have a very generous bequest gift from Johnny Ellsworth that was undesignated that we have access to. So between those two sets of money in hand, that's about 3/4 of the money we need. There's also smaller pie sections for money that we can draw, money that we can likely draw from cash reserves, as well as the endowment. And those, we're going to need to continue to have some folks work through the exact amounts. Those seem to be relatively conservative. We might actually be able to take a little more from cash, a little more from the endowment, depending on how the markets do. But this is kind of the ballpark we're starting from at this point. And you can see the last little pie slice there is about $55,000 right now. And that's you know, the potential amount of money that we're still kind of trying to sort out how to cover. More gifts would certainly help. And again, we may find other creative ways. One idea that has been brought forward by Lucy Gammon is that if we end up with a small amount that we need to fund, it might make sense to simply get it from members of the congregation rather than from a bank. Let's say if we need $50,000, maybe there are one or two people in the congregation that have a CD in the bank that they're rolling over, and we could work out some sort of arrangement. So lots of things in play, and at our next board meeting this week, we will be starting to kind of look at timelines and all the steps that need to take place so we can actually get this money to the bank and figure out what we'll do next with the endowment and all sorts of other fun and interesting things. Okay, so I think I've said what I wanted to say, and I guess the one thing I want to maybe kind of segue between Michael and Lucy regarding our stewardship campaign is that the mortgage campaign is going to take a lot of pressure off of stewardship and pledging, but we still as a congregation have a lot of work to do in growing our revenues in a way that not only really eliminates our budget deficits, but that also keeps pace with increases in compensation and general inflation. So there's going to be a lot of dialogue in the fall, and I'm really determined to help provide more clarity to the congregation in the form of some kind of longitudinal work that the board has been looking at over the past year to kind of help this all make sense to everyone and help us all wrap our heads around how we want to move forward. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lucy to talk a little bit more about stewardship.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lucy Gammon. I'm tall, white, bold, gray-haired, but still got a lot of gas in the tank for this congregation. And I am here to recognize two hardworking, long-serving members of our stewardship team, Liz Swanson and Barb Herring. And yes, round of applause. Please stand. Liz is here. Oh, Liz, stand up. We want to see you. We want to recognize you. I don't think Barb is here. Barb's not here. I don't believe Barb is here. But is she here? Oh, Barb is here. She's just a little shorter. Okay, thank you. We've recognized both of our hardworking members, Liz Swanson and Barb Herring. They're both retiring from the stewardship team as of this May, and we so appreciate their service. Liz joined the stewardship team in August of 2018. She replaced Jeffrey Ford as co-chair in May of 2021, serving with Diana Miller, who's also here this morning. And Liz served as co-chair and later chair of the stewardship team, where she's been ever since. Barb joined the stewardship team in August of 2022. Now, Pete Brokaw and I are the two remaining stewardship team members, and we're lonely. We'll get to that in a minute. Pete had this to say about Liz and Barb. He said, "What I so appreciated about them is the experience they brought to the committee. Liz had a long history of stewardship and fundraising in the School of Nursing. With her experience there, she brought new insights into the processes we were using. She's been very well organized and motivated to keep our campaign goals realistic and find ways to make the campaign goals successful. Barb had a long history as a UUS member, serving on many prior teams and committees. Her knowledge of the congregation and sense of what had worked effectively in fundraising gave us invaluable guidance in our decisions. So Liz and Barb, thank you again so much for your service. And now, as the remaining stewardship team members, Pete and I are actively looking for some new volunteers to fill the roles of these fine women and excellent church volunteers. So please let us know if you are interested in this exciting opportunity to serve our church. And if you don't let us know, we will come looking for you. Thank you.
I think Lucy made an understatement about having gas in the tank. How did she? Thank you, Lucy. I wanted to maybe just say a quick follow-up, which is that one of the things that one of the directions I think that we found successful and that really has been suggested by like our regional UUA folks in terms of what they're seeing across other congregations is a sort of move away from relying so heavily on standing committees that people sort of join and they have a monthly meeting and they have, you know, maybe they serve for 2 or 3 years or indefinitely in some cases. And at least opening up possibilities for people to contribute in more project-oriented ways, in short-term ways. So as we think about the stewardship campaign specifically, I think, you know, if you're put off by monthly meetings and that sort of thing, maybe there are ways to participate in a way that brings a certain part of your skill set or gifts to the process in a way that you can kind of plug in, not make such a long-term commitment. I think, you know, we're very open to making things work with the resources we have. And like the mortgage campaign is a good example of that. We never formed a formal committee during the entire process. There were like 4 different segments of different conversations and groups of people that all eventually turned into a campaign, and it was great, but it was very, very loose and ad hoc. Okay, I think we're at the last agenda item, which is listening to me. And I realized I forgot at the very beginning to do what I intend to do, which was describe myself. So my name's Jeff Wahlberg. I'm a 60-year-old white man who uses he, him pronouns. Today, I'm wearing a colorful t-shirt full of birds, insects, and flowers above the words gratitude, reciprocity, and abundance, as I celebrate my 688th day as your board president. I think there's a reason that we don't put terms of service in terms of days rather than years. I was a little surprised by what the spreadsheet told me. Okay, so I'm ostensibly kind of recapping the year, but as I said at our May meeting last year, I really tried to put a more kind of detailed recap in writing in our annual report. And I really encourage everyone to read the annual report. It's informative, it's inspiring, and it's really a great way to understand all of the things that happen in this highly complex, organic, ever-changing community. I learn a lot. There are so many things I don't know that are happening. So for my reflection today, what I'd like to focus on is the theme written on my t-shirt: gratitude, reciprocity, and abundance. These particular words are in tribute to Brian Gibbs, a manager at Effigy Mounds National Park, who lost his job to Doge. I think it's now been restored. Gibbs wrote a very passionate rejoinder on Facebook that included the following line: I am the lesson that showed your children that we live in a world of gifts, not commodities. that gratitude and reciprocity are the doorway to true abundance. When I volunteered to serve as president for 2 years, I made a commitment to myself that I would end my term, I might get a little choked up. I would end my term more engaged in and enthusiastic about this community than when I started. Not the message most people were sending me, by the way, when I took this on. So I was able to meet this goal in part by developing my own practice of gratitude on Sunday mornings. I started by refraining as much as possible from doing board business before or after worship services. Instead, I would come and settle into the opening music and appreciate the care that Reverend Diana and our worship team bring to creating a meaningful spiritual experience each Sunday. Try to immerse myself in the words and the singing and the rituals and the scenery outside. One of the things I've come to realize is that it's really amazing that we were able to live out our mission in so many ways while still centering everything around this weekly opportunity to gather as a community. It's putting together an event is hard, and we do it every single week, our minister and our staff and our worship teams. I take time to notice the people who showed up each particular day, to notice who I haven't met yet, and to think about how the experience of gathering together this Sunday morning is meaningful to such a wide range of people. This helps me enjoy a collective experience rather than just an individual one. I take time to appreciate our beautiful home and sit near the window to feel connected to the land we care for, remembering how many people came together just a few short years ago to make this vision a reality. I also take time to appreciate the generations of people who built this religious tradition and this particular community over the past 150 so years. Being present to the abundance they left us with helps me remember that persistence is more important than perfection, and to put current challenges into perspective. At board meetings, I've also seen the value of expressing our gratitude. During a particularly challenging time a year or so ago, I asked the trustees before the meeting to answer the following question during check-in. What is sustaining you or providing you joy at UUS right now? I've done this a few times now, and it's always surprising how varied our answers are. There are so many ways people engage with one another in this community, and we rarely have overlap in the answers we give. I can remember one trustee who urged us all to discover the joy of sound meditation, while another was delighted by a recent experience their child had in RE class. I've often expressed my own gratitude for the deep discussions in the men's sharing circle, while others have shared their joy of working with staff on challenging tasks. Through this form of check-in, I've found that it's a gift to others simply to ask what they're grateful for. As I reflect on my 2 years as president, I've also been thinking about the other idea mentioned by Brian Gibbs, which is reciprocity. A lot of what I've hoped to achieve in my position is to create conditions where people experience reciprocity on a regular basis. In other words, where the act of giving and receiving are present simultaneously, and where personal growth leads to collective growth. A few specific observations that make me feel like reciprocity has been present. One is that a majority of current board members have jobs, careers, and other significant commitments, which was not so true a couple years ago when most of the trustees were retired. So my hope is that we're creating a context where people can find outlets for their passion and energy while also having their own time and energy respected. The same is true beyond the board, and I'm encouraged by the many yeses I've received when inviting people to take on a new challenge for which they seemed well suited. And I'm also encouraged that all the yeses are allowing people to step back and take a break when they need to. One of the biggest challenges when I joined the board was that Reverend Diana had just returned from an unplanned medical leave due to long COVID. and she was now back at work, working more hours than seemed healthy. Over time, she's increasingly been able to honor her writing day on Thursdays so that she can devote more time to service preparation. And she's also been increasingly able to take an actual Friday off and to fully disconnect and recharge during her sabbatical. I think we still have a lot of work to do, but it's really, I'm really grateful that the board has been able to support her in her demanding role as we do our best to practice shared ministry. I'm also grateful in this idea of reciprocity for the way Reverend Diana created the conditions for us to thrive during her sabbatical. She started many months in advance by suggesting to me that we become a ministerial intern host site and apply for grant funding. The gifts that Bridget brought us while you all provided her with an excellent place to learn and grow is a clear example of reciprocity. This experience was so successful that Reverend Diana was recently approached by another prospective intern, eager to do her internship here at UUS next year, thanks to a stellar review from Bridget. And so the reciprocity continues. In conclusion, earlier in the year, Reverend Diana invited us to follow the teaching of activist Adrienne Marie Brown, who advises that we engage with tension without getting seduced by drama. We exist in a time of profound uncertainty and anxiety. It's hard to know how to best navigate these times in ways that build our capacity rather than depleting our energy and resources. Tension is ever present, and our national leaders seem intent on using drama to distract and disorient us. One way we aimed to engage tension creatively this past year was to center the idea of joyful resistance. And one of the best ways to practice joyful resistance is to continue our efforts in preemptive radical inclusion. By opening our circle wider, we invite tension intentionally because it demands that we change ourselves and our structures in order to become truly welcoming. But I and the board members believe and reaffirmed this past month that this path of radical inclusion that Reverend Diana and the larger denomination have invited us to follow, this path of joy and resistance is really the right path to be on. And it's the best way I can think of within this community to push back against what's happening in the wider world. Because of the lessons that various UUs have taught me over the past 30 years, I truly believe that liberation for each of us is predicated on liberation for all of us. And I agree with Gibbs that gratitude and reciprocity are the doorway to true abundance. So may it be. Okay, thank you so much, really. So the only thing separating you from cake and coffee is a brief time for questions of anything we've talked about today, anything on your mind. We have microphones to pass around.
Winnie Ganshaw. Could someone, if I didn't see this in a newsletter or a weekly, what is the national organization that we have joined called Hope for Us? Say a little bit about that. I don't know. I may be the only one who doesn't know
Sure.
that, but yeah.
Erica, do you want to? I'll give maybe just a brief thing while the mic is coming to Erica. It is a group of started by UU ministers and other UU religious professionals, and has kind of grown to encompass other denominational leaders and people in sort of, what am I trying to say, social work sort of fields, counseling, that sort of thing. And their goal is really to, they really saw a need in the various congregations that they had served. I think sometimes as district reps and stuff like that they had seen a real need for building capacity in conflict resolution and right relationship and covenanting, and all the ways that we, want to be together in healthy ways. So they formed a group called Hope for Us that offers services to congregations. And you want to say any more?
Yeah. So they're coaches. It's a conflict engagement team is what I think they call themselves. And it's a way to, I mean, historically, if you think about conflict, it's typically like power over, and whoever has the most power wins. And so this is a way to create dialogue and discussion around disagreements that is more sometimes collaborative, creative, and definitely respects relationships, and it's embedded in UUS values. And so they're gonna hopefully not hopefully, like we've spoken with them, and they're gonna be teaching us some specific skills, and they're gonna be talking to individuals in the congregation and groups who've had conflict and talk about, like, hopefully see what kind of conflict has been here and how we can help transform some of the processes that haven't been so helpful into processes that are more helpful for us. Yeah.
Maybe just quickly, I think a couple specific things. The board has been in kind of discernment about this for a while, and we did earlier in the fall, we did a live interaction with the coaches after a service, and have had some other Zoom calls with slightly wider groups of people. A couple of things that we have kind of gravitated towards as areas that we might head in. One is really building up our right relations team in ways that provide them useful skills, but also maybe more importantly, like what realm of conflict should they be responsible for, and how to best, engage with the wide range of types of situations we might run into. Another is that, like, our current policies really indicate that the minister is solely responsible for a lot of this kind of stuff. And so finding, models that take the pressure off her, I think, is a big goal. And one of the specific things that kind of emerged through talking about this is, I think Adrienne Marie Brown, again, and other activists have developed a concept, a simple, sort of simple concept called circles. And we don't exactly know what that looks like, but I think what we're envisioning is that the conflicts might be less about sort of two people with a mediator in the middle versus a circle of people who are in dialogue together, and maybe bringing some, maybe not just like two people in conflict, but a group of people who are trying to work through a situation, right? So it'll be interesting to see what it emerges, and I hope folks will kind of engage in this with just sort of a spirit of curiosity, and not like we're trying to fix a giant problem, but trying to develop better muscles, essentially. Somebody over here had a hand up. I didn't see. Can't.
Bruce Alexander from Endowment. So Jeff, it might be helpful if you let the congregation know how about the ASA and how much we're spending on interest each year for the mortgage.
Sure. So maybe taking a step back, I think endowments are mysterious often to people who haven't had a lot of direct experience with them. So the endowment as a whole is a little over $1 million. The challenge with the endowment is that 900,000 or so of that is protected in perpetuity, essentially. And so we have, you know, a couple 100,000, depending on the market, fluctuating up and down, to consider as sort of gains on our investments. So that's sort of the size of the endowment. So the benefit of especially the corpus part is that the interest and the, you know, the stock market gains that generates, we have access to each year in the form of an ASA, which is allowable annual spending allowance, right? So we have, ever since we moved into the building, been drawing 5% ASA, which is, you know, I think as I've done research, average endowments are usually around 4%, 4.5%, something like that. So we've been drawing a little bit higher than is typical. But so 5% of $1 million is $50,000. We've been a little bit over that for the last few years. So I think 55,000 is what we generated this past year. So as we, you know, part of the equation as we think about paying down the mortgage is that we as a congregation can decide to draw any amount of that money above the corpus, right? So there's maybe a couple $100,000 that we could choose to put to the mortgage. The more we do that, the more we risk sort of shutting off this guaranteed flow of money that we benefit from. So there's a real trade-off, especially because it's so connected to the stock market, that, you know, the ups and downs of the stock market could take us below the corpus, and then we have zero coming out as the ASA. Yeah, so that's a long-winded answer to a short question, but I think, I guess I do think the endowment is really something that's underappreciated, I think, maybe because it's just so behind the scenes. And I think this fall, as we're sorting through all this stuff, I do think giving the endowment and the way it really is serving us, and the way it could serve us even better with, you know, more gifts towards it, growing it even further, is all really important, I think, for all of us to reckon with. So, Christine.
Do you know how much we pay in interest every year
How much we pay in interest?
to the mortgage loans?
Yeah, it's almost exactly the same as what we get from the endowment. And yeah, so I think it's 58 grand this year. Is that right? I think it's 58. It's almost a one-to-one, the amount we're getting from the endowment and the mortgage. I'm sorry, that's the total amount for the mortgage, right?
Yeah,
Not the mortgage interest.
Right. So in 2025, our ASA from the endowment comes out to about $54,540. Our mortgage payments come out to just under, it's like $59,000. And of that, so what we've been doing is paying essentially 50% principal, 50% interest every single month. So of that, so yeah, it's $29,200 in principal, $29,200 in interest every year. And so that's basically when I'm going in and doing all these calculations, we're getting money. We have been for the last 10 years, 15 years, getting money from the endowment, and 50 cents of every dollar we get from the endowment is going to bank interest. And this feasibility campaign and the reactions we've gotten from this congregation is that we want that to stop. That we want to keep the money that we're getting from the endowment and not giving half of it as interest to the bank. And I think that was a very, very motivating factor for a lot of y'all. And I'm very grateful, and our bank account is very, very grateful.
Another question or two? Okay, people are ready for cake, I think. I do have an announcement that I'm remembering Christine handed me. Okay. End of the meeting announcement. Between 3 and 5 today, the online election will open on Election Buddy. You will receive an email with an individual link and voting key. The vote will be open until 5 on Friday, 5 p.m. on Friday. Those who have chosen to vote via paper ballot should mail in or turn in your ballot before 5 on Friday. If you do not receive an Election Buddy meeting invitation, please email Christine Etler, whose email is in the voting packet and in Realm. If you would like to switch your voting method, you may also do so by contacting Christine. This means if you have a paper ballot, you can turn it in and vote online instead, or alternatively, if you have received an online election invitation, you can request a paper ballot. And one more question, comment from Christine.
Hi, I'm worried that I might not be able to get it by 5 because I'm meeting my sister who lives 1,000 miles away, and we might have an amendment, right? We have to change the minutes. I have to edit it, so I might be late. That's my point.
You're worried that we have published this and need to amend it?
No. I thought we have to change the minutes. From the amendment earlier? Or no?
Maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying. I'm sorry.
I haven't published the election yet. I will this afternoon, but we need to discuss if I need to edit it. And that's why I'm worried I'll be late. I might be confused. I'm just not understanding the issue. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, I see. You need to make an amendment so you're not sure it's going to be out by 5. Okay. Yes.
That'll be fine. It'll be out later this evening, tomorrow morning, sometime.
Before tomorrow.
Okay. So you essentially will have Monday through Friday to vote. Okay. All right. Unless there are any burning questions, we're at closing words and extinguishing the chalice.
I'm going to leave you with a Buddhist parable. There once was a man who decided to become a Buddhist monk. Upon entering the monastery, he made a vow not to leave until he had learned something significant enough that he could teach it to others to relieve their suffering. Finally, after 30 years, he announced it was time for him to go. The important lesson: meet what arrives. We have been doing that. May we continue to do that. And to help us with that, I invite you to say our standard, our traditional extinguishing chalice words with me. They're not going to show up on the screen. This is just going to be a memory test. And then you get to eat cake. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
I have not adjourned the meeting yet. So we are at the end of the agenda. Unless there is objection, I will consider the meeting adjourned. Okay, hearing none.